Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm not intentionally making this sexy voice. I'm a little bit under the weather. Before we start, I want to thank, before I introduce my guest, I want to thank Calexico Brewing Company once again for allowing me to record today's episode here at their brewery. Today they're going to have Pints and Paints. Starts at 6:30, so if you want to stop by, I think it's $30 the cover charge. And you get the materials for your painting and free pint of beer.
Nice.
And then October 20th, they're having, in collaboration with the city of Calexico, they're having the October Fest. So make sure to stop by. Follow them on Facebook for all that info. And yeah, let me introduce my guest. Today's guest is David Romero.
Morning, guys. How you guys doing?
He's running for Calexico City Council. Usually how I start my podcast is I have my guests tell me a little bit about themselves.
Okay.
So go at it.
Well, morning, guys. I want to thank Jose Alejos for having me as a guest here. Morning, everybody. My name is David Romero. I am from Calexico. I am running for City Council this year. And let me say a little bit about myself. I was originally born in Mexicali. We came to Calexico with my parents when I was 5 years old, and pretty much I've lived here my entire life. Except during a little time when I was in the military. I went from dual to Nyanza to high school. Graduated class of 2002. Proud Bulldog alum. I'm a veteran from the United States Army. I've been in Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003 when it first got real. And I grew up in a small business, in a small family run business. Romero Carpet Care was my dad. And that's how I started getting involved a little more with the community. I've always been a big fan of sports, and I've always played sports, and it's always been a pleasure to represent Calexico from Little League and from CYBL with Mr. Santillanes, where I actually got to meet Jose Alejos, when we were young in it and we were still playing ball, and we can play and not feel the soreness in our knees the following day. Yeah. So, and it's, now that, I'm a father of two. I have a lovely wife. I have two gorgeous kids. They're now, my daughter is now, Cesar Chavez Elementary, and it's just crazy to see how change now change. And I'm just excited to be now one of those contributing adults to the town. So,
lately I've been seeing you doing a lot of community events.
Right.
Where, you're more involved. Also, I think you were involved in the finance committee.
Right. For the last year, I've been involved. I was a committee. I was part of the committee. I was the secretary for the finance and economic development for the city. I've been doing community work for a while already, from being a Pop Warner coach to, we actually run a ministry called Transformando Mi Ciudad alongside, and we collaborate alongside Maribel Padilla and all the Brown Bag Coalition team. And for a little over a year, we now have been feeding the homeless at least once a month. We're actually doing a fundraiser right now because winter is right around the corner, and we're trying to get homeless sleeping bags. And we're, soon as of next month, we're also going to start feeding the men's shelter out on Encinas. So it's awesome. If there's a way you can give back to your community, I've always been a fan of that. I've always been keen of that.
Mm-hmm. And along the way, how do you think, some of the things that you've been doing or just in life in general that are preparing you to become a city council member?
I think more than anything, just what I think I feel that is very strong in me is how I like to help out my community. Ever since I was really young, I always had the idea that I wanted to serve my country, which is the reason why I joined the United States Army. Funny story is, when I was in the Army and everybody was introducing themselves and they would say why they joined the military, it was funny because you would get all kinds of crazy answers, but really nobody would say I joined because I wanted to serve my country. So when it came up to me and I said I joined the Army because I wanted to serve my country, everybody kind of looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, well, I thought that's why we all joined.
Yeah.
So, and to make it a little more personal, I did that I did that in the military. I wanted to do something here in the city as well. It's been ingrained with me. I've had the chance of working with my dad since I was like 12, 13 years old, and going into so many houses and just hearing so many stories and hearing so many needs that the people have been wanting. And it's crazy because it's always the same one. It's always the same ones. So it's kind of like it gets ingrained in your head that, like, you know what to do. You're hearing it from the people. So, try to do something about it. So.
Yeah. Going back to your time in the service. Right. And thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome.
Do you think that it's something that that differentiates you from the other candidates, that you think that that experience of going to the ultimate
right
way of serving your country?
I hope it doesn't. Does it maybe give me, I just think that by serving there, it really opened up my perspective. It really brought a lot of pride in me to be able to do that. And when I was actually deployed, I would get a lot of letters from friends and relatives, and they were like, and the first thing a lot of them would say is like, "You make Calexico proud, man." And funny story, and I'll say it really quick. When I was out in Iraq, we were still in Kuwait. I got switched from one unit to another, and I needed what they called a secret clearance. Okay. So they needed to do a background check on me, and they were like, "Hey, don't worry about it, Romero. By the end of the day, you're gonna have you'll have your clearance." So I was like, "Okay, whatever." I went to sleep, and sure enough, like 6 hours later, my sergeant comes up to me. He's like, "Here's your clearance pass. You're good." And the one thing he said was, "Man, people in Calexico love you." And I was like, that hit me because I turned 19 when I was in Kuwait. I turned 19 when I was deployed out over there. And I never really thought about it because I lived all my life with my parents. I lived all my life in Calexico, and then, obviously my family being in Mexicali. So and I never really got a chance to, aside from sports, represent people. So when he told me that, and then a couple of days later, a lot of letters started coming in from my family and my friends, and they were like, "Dude, you make Calexico proud, man. We're proud of you being out there." And that's not just me. I think every service member. I want to thank them too, and because I have a lot of friends from Calexico, who have served, and some of them have sacrificed a lot of things. Some of them have been injured, and and they've done a lot for the love of their country. So. But that's when it really hit me that, when he said, "Man, people from Calexico love you." So, it really stuck since there, man. And that was 19, I'm 34 right now. So we're talking 15 years later, and I still have it ingrained in my brain.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that, becoming or somebody that wants to run for city council should have, a little bit of, experience when it comes to or just a little bit of educational background, or not any Joe Schmo can become do you think because in reality anybody can become,
yes,
but do you think that it's important that people that are gonna take that responsibility have some kind of maybe
right, maybe not so much educational as in you need to have a political science degree and stuff like that, but at least knowledge of what's going on in the city in general. And because, for instance, me, I'm a college dropout. I'm an insurance agent, and I'm nothing against school or anything. I just, the majority of my education has come from reading. So whenever I wanted to do something or learn something, I would read. And, I have a huge library in my house. I have books from finance, personal development, religion. And I believe that, you just can't run for the sake of running because you're, I've heard this so many times, is that I'm not a politician. I'm a concerned citizen. But it's like, but at the end of the day, you are going to become or looking to becoming or inspiring to become a politician. So you should at least, give yourself that time to educate yourself on all the city matters and all the important things going around right now. A lot of people don't know the dynamic. So then you get there and say, you won, you get there and you don't know what you're doing. It becomes a really slow start. I mean, even, for instance, if I would even get elected, even though I have a little bit over, some experience, I still believe, it's barely even getting your feet wet. So, I mean, I definitely think, candidates, I mean, if they really feel strong about their community, they should be involved in the political scene way before even campaign season begins. That's the way I see it.
And I think you've done it through the finance committee. You think
I've done it through the finance committee, and I've done it. I've done it through even just serving my community. Through what I was saying, through feeding the homeless, and because you get to see the needs that the city have. When you serve your community, you're seeing the different needs that there is, and you try to find a way to implement them when you're in a position in a certain position that allows you to maybe help that person. So,
I asked on Facebook if anybody had any questions, and somebody, and this is something that I had also thought about myself. Right. This guy named Bruno Suarez, I think. He asked, how do you, because Calexico's biggest eyesore is the downtown area,
right?
Imperial Avenue is starting to become that kind of like that ghost town kind of feel, because
right,
a lot of businesses are leaving. And one of his comments was, or question was, how do you feel about maybe some of the buildings in the downtown area, making them like into lofts, like apartments?
You know what? I'm actually for that. This past couple of months ago, they did pass the ordinance, the law in City Hall, where downtown is now a dual zone, where you can do both residential and commercial now. And I think that's actually good, because it's going to create more traffic flow.
Yeah.
And eventually, people are going to want to walk out and they want to go grab a bite. They're going to want to go do things, and people don't take into consideration that San Diego State is literally a couple of blocks away from downtown, and to maybe create a residential area where we can, promote more students studying at San Diego State and having a place where they can stay. People who like to study, people who come in and study abroad, or maybe just people who want to study in San Diego State, but the San Diego campus might be too expensive in general. And they're like, well, there's, we're still going to get the same education, in a smaller town, less expensive town. And you give them a lot of things that they can do by being there. I think that's definitely something that, for instance, at least it is a part of my platform, which is the rebuilding of downtown Calexico. So it's nothing new there. And I think that right now, with all those ideas and, grants being out there for infrastructure and urbanizing, and, there's already a couple of pilot projects that are in the works for downtown. I'm just all for it, man. I mean, I grew up in downtown. I'm pretty sure you did too.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we used to go shop. My mom would take me to super shopping, go to Rimo Latino, buy CDs, grab a hot dog on 2nd Street, go play pool and go play go play arcades at Donut Avenue. So for me to bring that back, grab an ice cream at the old Thrifty, now Rite Aid. And so, I see now how it looks. It is disappointing, but there's a diamond in the rough right there. Like the Mexican saying, donde hubo fuego, cenizas quedaron. And I definitely think we're in that phase right now where we can definitely do something about downtown.
And then especially, cause the new port of entry, it was moved, but the pedestrian one is gonna be.
It's gonna be in the same area.
In the same area, cause
right.
I heard somewhere that it was gonna be where that bus stop is for, in between where Pronto was and that I don't know where.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Where Samuel is.
That's what I heard that it was.
I don't know the infrastructure yet, but I know it's going to be in that same area. So pedestrians are still going to have to walk through downtown when they come over from Mexicali or vice versa when you're going from north to south. The only thing that's changing is more of the traffic, the driving traffic. That's the one that's really changing. But at the end of the day, I still think that a lot of the pedestrian is what really keeps up a lot with downtown, and the fact that they're not taking that away is a positive note.
Yeah, because I feel that if you're gonna come across in your car, you're not gonna come across just in your car just to go to downtown,
Right.
You're gonna,
I mean, in that case, you would just walk.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I mean, most of the time there's a longer wait on your car than it is. The other question that Bruno had was, how do you feel about the cannabis, business or the legalization of?
I'm actually for it in a sense where, in the beginning I was kind of like, cannabis, obviously growing up, they tell you, cannabis is bad and, it's really tabooed and it's just for, marijuanos and stuff like that. But once you really start to educate yourself on the benefits of cannabis, aside from the high and how it can help you with different medical, I can't say anything because I'm not a doctor, but, from the, like I said, I going back to my reading. Obviously, if I want to educate myself on something or know a little bit more about it, I go out there and I read. And, seeing the benefits that it gives to so many people and how it helps them with certain type of, diseases they have. And it's I think it's a great idea in that sense. And then in the other sense, it's also the business standpoint from it. The tax revenue that it can generate for the city is also something else that we direly need. It's no surprise where our financials stand. Thankfully we're getting better. They're getting better in City Hall in regards to the budget, but we definitely still need that boost. And just one of the main things that I see that City Hall has to do now was the responsibility of the cannabis is to be a little more transparent with how they handle their financials and their budgets and stuff like that. So that's something else that I've been really, pushing hard for in City Hall, that for them to be a little more transparent and open with the public. I think that's the biggest issue. It's not so much the cannabis being here. It's the fact that, you can bring in so many industries that are progressive or whatever you want to think of them. But if you're not doing the right thing with the revenue that it generates for the city, then what's the point?
Yeah. Exactly. I feel that sometimes people run for these positions and they feel that they have a misconception of even the public. When they see somebody that's a city council member, they feel that he runs the city.
Right.
When in reality, you're just one vote.
Right. For starters, yes. For starters, as city councilmen and women, it comprised of 5, and you need 3 votes for you to pass something. And there's even some special occasions where you need 4. And so you're only a voice, and really the people who run, the city are more of the administration, the finance director, the city manager, the assistant city manager. Councilmen are just there to make sure that, they're doing the right thing. And that's the misconception. Like people do ask me, like, and I've, even though it's joking, it's like, oh, David, so if you win, are you going to hook it up so we don't have to show our passport when we cross over? I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that. So people do have that misconception that, oh, you're in there, bro. Make it happen. I'm like, I got to work with everybody else. And I think that's something that the current council has been doing a good job, is that they're actually starting to work together more, because before it was drama. It was just drama when you would go to the city council meeting. And that actually pushes people away.
Yeah.
And then, people are complaining that, there's no citizen involvement. It's because when there is, people are acting, they're acting up. And that doesn't look good. And people don't understand that you are in that loop where everybody's watching what you do, what you say.
Yeah.
And that goes far beyond just the council chambers. That's even, outside in the city. You are literally a representation of Calexico. So I always hear a lot of people who run for their first time, though it's not my first time running. It's officially my first time since the last time I wasn't really able to do a campaign and do everything that I'm doing now because of my previous job. But, when I hear a lot of these speeches where it's like, you know what, I'm not a political candidate, I'm just a concerned citizen. It's like, people got to stop with that, man. That's something that really does bother me. It's like, I want people that, to see when they see me is that, there goes the politician that's trying to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Go beyond council member, just there goes a person who actually, I want to be I am a politician, but I want to give a good name to politicians, because when you hear you hear he's a politician. Oh, he's corrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, he's shady. Oh, no. I want him to see like he's a politician. That guy's good. That guy's squared away. That guy cares about his community. That's what I want to bring back to Calexico.
Yeah, because especially here in a small town, you kind of, you're in the limelight, like whenever you're in those positions. Mm-hmm. And sometimes like it amazes me when some past candidates or elected officials have done crazy stuff, and yet they're out here facing the people. And
right, that's the other thing. Like a lot of people, it's like it's not like we're a big city. It's like you do something wrong, everybody's gonna look, everybody's gonna find out, everybody's gonna look at you, and it doesn't just affect you. It affects everybody that's around you. Like for instance, my dad, who has a carpet cleaning business, my wife, my kids, it's a small community. Yeah. So you really have to be careful, and it's just like, and people don't understand that being a councilman, it's not like an actual, like you live off of it, because you don't. They get paid a very relatively small stipend, and it's more than anything to like help out your community. And not only that, you start burning your bridge in the political area, it'll eventually burn out too in your professional, whatever you do outside of being a council member. In my case, an insurance agent. So people got to understand that this city is small, and when you take the responsibility of wanting to become a council member or a candidate or help out in City Hall, people are going to be watching you, and they're going to be watching you far beyond, your actions or your comments at council chambers.
Yeah. And what, how did you get to this point? Like, I know that you've ran before, and you feel like you've been like wanting to somehow, help and serve your community, but why this in this election season? Like, what made you think like, right now it's the perfect time?
Well, one of the reasons I even got involved was, first of all, I think politics has been one of my favorite subjects in school, starting off with history, economics, government. And one of the things that really started raising my curiosity was when, as a younger person, when I was driving around with my dad in the city, it was always the same people running for office. Always. Even my last name is not, the most unknown last name, Romero. Thankfully, I'm not related to, not that I don't want to, but I'm not related to the Romeros that have ran in the past or are currently running. I wish them nothing but the best of luck and success. Yet, I always saw the same people. And I was like, why? Why isn't there more? And as I started getting older, I started understanding there is a big responsibility, that comes with it. And you really got to have, love for your community. If there's something that I would ask from the people of Calexico is to get a little more involved, because it does affect you. I remember when they did the meeting for the raising of the water, and it was packed. It was super packed. And literally, the public comments were like, you guys raise our utilities, we're not voting for you ever again. And it didn't go through. Yeah. It did not go through. And that's where at least I saw it for the first time, the power of the people. But here's the crazy part, Jose, is that as soon as the water bill, that went out the door, everybody left the meeting. But little did they know that the following subject on hand was the budget, and nobody was there for that. And that was the crazy part. And it was like, guys, that's probably even more important. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, those are your tax dollars that are going to get put to work, and you are going to leave here without having a clue. So, if there's anything that I ask for the city is, be a little more involved, ask more questions. I mean, I even get it now, as a candidate, I've been getting a lot of people coming up to me and asking me, hey, David, que esto y que lo otro. And I'm like, that's what I'm here for at the end of the day. And I think that's something City Hall has to really work on, is transparency, and is really getting the information out there to the people. Yeah. Ahora ya with social media and everything, it's really hard to hide things. Yeah. And I understand that, they say, well, everything's public information, public record, but nobody's really going to go in and really take a look at it and take a deeper look. And, for starters, when you go and you try to get a business permit, it's a challenge as it is. I mean, imagine wanting to go in there and asking a couple of questions about the budget. I think that's, it would probably be even harder. So I think that's something that we got to work on, is that transparency for the people to really see how their money's being put to work, and obviously, if they just look around the city, they're like, well, they're not really doing a good job, so, I think that's definitely where we got to work on.
And I think, the diversity in sense of, the age range here in Calexico is
right.
We have a big population of senior citizens.
Right.
We have I don't know if we have a lot of I don't know, people in their mid-30s that are willing to, because right now, I mean, and if you think about it, the senior citizens are not really involved because it might be a little bit harder for them in sense of
right, moving around, and they're retired, man, and they want to enjoy their golden years. Yet, unfortunately, the way the situation is right now, economically speaking, and everything, it's a little harder. Shout out to all the seniors. I've had a pleasure of once again, going back to my family's business, is that, we have a lot of these property contracts where we work with a lot of the senior apartments. So I've gotten a chance to go in there and even had a chance to talk to them before even being a candidate, and just being like, "Oiga, mijo, this is what we need," and blah, blah, blah. This is what we're looking more for. And so it's kind of cool, because I get to see every single need from different age brackets, from, kids in high school to, I'm mid-30s, which is kind of like, the what I've heard is like, yes, our generation's the one right now that's voting. Our generation's the one that's buying houses and building the economy. So I've had the chance to hear from every single age variation, and yes, we do have a huge senior population in Calexico that we should definitely take more into consideration. So. But
do you feel that our generation, people in the mid-30s, are really getting involved in is there a lot of us or enough of us that are?
We can always use more. I mean, if putting it that way, is we can definitely always use more involvement, and I urge them to really be more a part of it, and taking a little more of what's going on, because it is their tax dollars being put to work, and that way, at the end of the day, they don't blindside you with any new laws or any new ordinances or whatever. And, and it's a benefit for them. And it's a foundation that they're setting up for their kids. Like my kid is 8 and my younger son is 4. And they ask me, it's like, Dad, why do you, I always, cause I've taken them with me when we go out and feed the homeless, and they ask me like, why do you do this? So, it gives me pride to be able to tell them it's because if you're able to help out a person in need, it's always good for you to do that.
Yeah.
So, since little kids, they're being programmed that it's always good to help out. So it's something that I tell people that are around my age, mid-30s, 80s babies, you can say, is that, get a little more involved, because, your kids do look at that, at stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's a benefit for everybody in general. So,
yeah. And I think, what you said about, it's a kind of like what we're leaving behind for our kids or the junior generation. We see it now in politics where, in the national level, where there are people that try to implement like laws or what's the other term that I'm looking for,
like divide.
No like laws or what's that word,
legislation.
No. Stuff preventing, like, let's say, oil companies to, or companies that are polluting to, have lower emissions, and, these people that, try to put these, man, I can't think of the word. And Trump always says that, like, yeah, I'm the president who's taken these, I can't think of the word. Right. But what I'm trying to get is, for example, you might be in there and put all these pass all these legislation or laws, whatever, to help improve our community, but yet years in the future somebody may come
and that's the reason why we need more involvement, because you set up that foundation and it's like kind of like the water deal, you know, people will eventually go and it's like, why are you trying to change something that's already benefiting us? But if we don't know about this stuff, if we're not informed about it, if we're not educated on it, then it's gonna be really challenging, because I see people, you know, you try to build something and then somebody comes 4 years later and just pretty much breaks it down. I strongly believe that that's one of the reasons why we need more community involvement. Something that I am wanting to do, you know, is keeping everything like, you know, albeit like they say, you know, open door policy, where it's like, if elected, you know, one of the things that I want to do is be more communicative with the people. And I'm not talking like by news, I'm talking like social media, you know, have a meeting, and after the meeting, you know, tell them, hey, this is kind of like what went down, guys, you know, go to the City of Calexico website, check out the meeting. If you can, here's a quick overview. Just keep it an open book.
Yeah.
You know,
but my experience with that, you know, with doing this, I've been doing YouTube with my son for like 5 years now. I feel that here in the Valley, or not in the Valley, but at least Calexico, we're a little bit behind in the sense where, you know, we use the technology, but not in the right way. We like to use Facebook, which is the quality in terms of Facebook has gone, you know, down, you know, in the sense of what you're seeing on your feed. Facebook is a great tool to use, like as a like a bulletin board, like a community, you know,
which is my intention.
But yet, like we see that, like a lot of people like see a long post, like say you're gonna put a long post of good information. They're gonna be like, screw this, I'm gonna get over the chisme, like, you know.
Exactly. They want to see the Chona challenge. They want to see the Kiki challenge. They want to see the eyes, the bucket eyes challenge. And it's you know, content nowadays. It's like, you know, you only get a person's attention for, you know, 15 to 30 seconds if you're lucky. So that's something that we definitely got to work on. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to start somewhere. So I believe, if anything, so, you know, social media can be that tool. I believe that a lot of us don't watch TV that much anymore. Not even the news, you know, CNN, constant negative news. And it's just, you know, little by little, I think people are going to start. That's why one of the reasons why I wouldn't actually write it. I would actually do a video about it. I just think it grabs people's attentions a little more. You know, keep it short, keep it 1 or 2 minutes. Just really get down to the nitty gritty, just to keep people informed. More than anything, to keep people with those questions. Boom, you know, and so that they can come up to me or any other person in general, and that works, and, you know, that's part of the political atmosphere, and ask, hey, what's going on? So what did this happen?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you know, you're when you're elected official, you're, you know, the people's
representation.
So like, you should you that's part of your, I guess, your job to like talk to people, to the residents. And I feel like people that run at times kind of like don't think about that, and when it comes time to like,
or really, worse, they think about it, but as soon as they get there, they don't do it.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is like, is it because they don't like the pressure, or they just like, since day one they knew like, I'm gonna be a people person, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm not really gonna do it.
At the end of the day, man, what I think a lot of the politicians is that they say they do something, is that I understand that I'm not gonna be able to please everybody. And I understand there's going to be backlash and criticism with that, but it's part of it. But it's part of the system, like they say, it's part of the game. So, and I strongly believe that a lot of the politicians don't come up and be more transparent with those type of questions, with those type of giving out those type of answers and information, is because they're more afraid of what the critics are going to say than of what the people that actually are going to benefit from it. So, you know, you can do something awesome. You can be like I was hearing the other day. It's like where President Trump was like, you know, I love dogs, and then the news goes like, oh, Trump hates cats, but he never really said that. But just because he said I love dogs, you know it. So So it's kind of like the same thing where it's like, you know, the whole cannabis deal. Also, are you for it? I can say, like I'm saying yes. And then I know I'll probably get a backlash. Hey, man, you know, Kika Camarena died for that. And, you know, I've heard the story, man, because, you know, Enrique Camarena's everywhere. Yeah. Here, you know, our library, our middle school. So, but at the end of the day, you know, things evolve, and now with technologies and the benefits that it has from it. But I understand that, you know, and some people are going to be like, hey, good job, man. Way to think progressive, way to, you know, look out for those people. So I can't please everybody, man.
Yeah.
And you got to understand that. And you got to understand that there is going to be criticism, with you know, with whatever answer you get.
And I feel like nowadays politics, you know, especially with this administration, has been really like, aggressive, you know, like, you know, if you're not on so-and-so side or if you're not for what somebody else is trying to, you know, get or whatever, like they're really like,
it's like my way or the highway.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I feel another thing that I feel as well is that, it's okay to be wrong, you know. I think a lot of politicians or just people in general, like, I mean, we don't always, you know, nobody's perfect. So like, if you say something or if you agree with something that at the end of the day, you didn't really look it through, but later on you're like, you know what, I screwed up. It's okay to be like, you know what, like,
and it makes you even look better because, I mean, if you know you're wrong and you know, and then you come up with another, you know, reason, you know, you come up with something else that's wrong to cover up your first one, it just makes you look much worse.
Two negatives don't make a positive.
Exactly. Not in this case, you know, this ain't science.
Yeah.
So, I really believe that, for instance, is to own up. I mean, it's hard because we're prideful, you know, especially, you know, coming from a Hispanic/Mexican community, we're really prideful in that. But I think that's something that you know, at least I know that I've got to learn, where it's like, if I'm wrong, you know, it's better to come out clean and be like, I'm wrong. I didn't study this enough. You know, I'll make sure that I do a better job next time. And I think that's where we got to start.
Yeah, I think it makes us better people.
Right.
When we, you know, own up to mistakes, you know.
And this whole deal about, you know, either you're left or right, either you're Republican, or Democrat, it's not going to work, man. It's always you got to find some middle ground at the end of the day, and you got to listen to both sides of the aisles. That's one of the reasons I'm excited right now with City Hall here, is because, you know, council members are starting to work a little more in cohesion, and that says a lot, because before it was kind of like everybody was divided. That's when nothing was going through, and that's why the city ended up in the position that they are, you know. And now that they're starting to climb back out, you know, I going back to that thing. You know, it's not gonna be. That's not the answer that Calexico needs at this moment.
Yeah, I think we're being put less and less in the Ivy Press as, you know, the Valley's kind of like joke. You know?
Right.
Yeah, because for a while it was like I watched just to see the madness.
Right.
You know, I would go into the you know.
It's like watching a novela, man. It's like watching Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
You know, political edition.
Exactly, and. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get anywhere. We just went backwards, you know.
Right.
And yeah, like now you can see that there is that cohesion, that unity, where, you know, it seems like the people that are there for the right reasons.
Right.
And people
don't understand that, even if you don't, like, for instance, even if you stalemate, not doing nothing, it's not like you're staying there. It takes you back, because everything keeps moving forward. So, even though, you know, you're not fighting, but if you're not doing anything, it's like going backwards. So a lot of people, they got to take that into consideration as well, which was going on at the, you know, before, where it was such a stalemate, where things wouldn't go through, or there wouldn't be enough votes, and people was like, oh, well, no, nothing's really happening. Well, exactly. But since nothing's really happening, you're going backwards, because the city's still, you know, the city in general still got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
how many spots are going to be open?
There's 2 spots, and I know one of the candidates is actually going for county. One of the council members is up for county supervisor for District 1. So there might be a possible third, you know, if he would actually win, you know. But as for now, for sure, there's 2. Both of the incumbents are not going for re-election. So you're going to see 2 brand new council members up there, and I'm excited about that, man. I really am.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, not that the ones that are leaving were doing a bad job, but it's a good.
Right.
It's good for change.
yeah, exactly.
New ideas, new
ideas.
perspectives.
Exactly. That's the way I saw it. When I heard that that none of the incumbents were going for re-election, I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna have two new
How many are running?
There's 7.
7 people. Running.
There's 7 people running, and officially, you can do write-ins, whatever. But officially, there's 7 people running. And I'm already including myself in that count.
How do you feel about our voter turnout?
You know what? This is what they call a midterm election, and normally during midterm, not that many people show up to vote because I don't know why people think it's more important to vote when the president's running. But to be honest, people. That's where we go back to the education. Midterm votes are normally a little more important because there's so many local things being put into vote, like taxes and ordinances, and like for instance the cannabis and all that stuff. And but I think people that affect you, things that affect you, laws and ordinances that can affect you directly, not only in your lifestyle but in your pocket, but in your wallet.
But you don't feel that this midterm is a little bit different in the sense of
It is, because people are more involved now. And let's keep it real. Ever since Trump got into office, more people have been keeping a look on politics. And maybe not for the right reasons, but the fact that they're there, it's awesome, because that's just a starting point, and it sets up a foundation. And if anything I can tell the citizens is, go out there. Your vote does count, man. I mean, 2 years ago, by the end of the night of the election night, I was only 9 votes away from the 3rd chair, and not to toot my own horn, but 9 votes, that's calling it close.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like you say, it does.
Imagine
really
if I would have asked a couple of more people just to vote.
Yeah.
It could have done a different outcome. And there's, I've heard of other people like, there's not even 2000, Al Gore and President Bush. It came down to a couple of precincts out in Florida to decide who was going to be the president.
Yeah.
So, your vote, people got to understand that their vote does count. And if you can't come to a voting booth, go and re-register and get a mail-in ballot if it's easier for you, whatever it takes, but for you to be more involved. And one of the first things is, and I get real with people, because they get real with me, and I tell them, because they start complaining, or they start giving me their expressions, or their concerns, and I'm like, did you vote last time, bro? And they're like, no. Then why are you complaining?
Yeah.
You want to do a change, start off by voting.
Do you feel that our population our city is unique in the sense that we're a border town,
right?
A lot of our population, come Friday or come the weekend, and they go to Mexicali, and that's this is like their just like an address where they come in and bring their kids to school and stuff like that. Do you feel that impacts our numbers in the sense of
it does? I think it does, man. I mean, I've been president for school site council for the past 3 years. 1 year at Kennedy Gardens, and the last 2 at Cesar Chavez Elementary. And I've seen it. I've seen when parents go in there and they're like, I live out by so-and-so place. And they're like, well, you got to go register your kid at so-and-so school. But they're like, no, I want them to come here. I have an aunt who lives around the corner. I have this, I have that. And, seeing kids every single morning cross the border and not raise a concern. It's kind of like, and we get, for instance, what I've noticed is that a lot of our testing scores in schools from elementary all the way to high school are really low. Because of the fact that the English level is always down, we were talking like in school side, like the Title I funding and everything, it's based on test scores. Oh, and it's always what was I gonna say?
That.
And I think it has to do a lot with that. I mean, once you cross over. Thank you, man.
Thank you, dude.
Once you cross over to Mexicali, it's not like I think homework's probably the last thing on your mind, and with that also is parent involvement. Yeah. Since a lot of the parents don't even live in Calexico for starters, they just send their kids to school here. They're not even involved in the meetings or what's going on with them in the classroom, and it reflects when it comes time to testing and I commend all the cheers. And I commend all the teachers and at all from K through 12 here in Calexico, because every year you see how the student population keeps growing, but yet you see or less teachers or more like students to teacher ratios. The ratios are ridiculous, but yet they're still able to handle do their thing. So all the teachers out there and all the staff, I commend you guys, because that's awesome. When I went to school here, maybe it was 20 persons per teacher. Now it's like 30, 35. I heard this upcoming graduating class from Calexico is going to be over 1,000. Oh, wow. The graduating seniors. So it's like,
yeah, and I, like you said, parent involvement has a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
In this in the sense of grading or the reading scores and all that, because
right.
I mean, if there's no parent involvement, who's gonna be there to push their kid to read a book,
right?
I mean, if like you said, like the last thing on these kids' minds is to go home and read if they need to cross the border, either get a cab or a bus, go back home.
Which is dangerous alone, because you're underage as it is, having to go through all this stuff, and sometimes it can get dangerous when you cross over, man. Especially with so many people out there, looking for money and asking for money, and sometimes they get these crazy ideas, and it's challenging, man.
Yeah, and I mean Calexico is, like I said, it's really unique in that sense.
And it makes it look like we're actually a big community, but when in reality, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, and then, our facilities, our school facilities sometimes are impacted in that sense that,
right.
We're being overpopulated.
Right.
And yet, these numbers show that we have so many students, but yet, our community it doesn't reflect.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we end up picking up the slack to say a measure has to be voted or passed for, the school to get funds to remodel
right.
or
right.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's something that it's always,
But then again, they're kids, and the last thing you want to do is, leave a kid behind, and it's difficult. And at the end of the day, like me, you have kids, your own. You have your own kids. Obviously, you want them to have better facilities, a better education, more one-on-one time with their teachers. So when they come up with measures like this, you're not gonna be like, no.
Yeah.
So. And then there comes the part of school board and making sure we go back again to transparency, making sure that those funds are being used for what they're supposed to be used for. So at the end of the day, man, it's all about involvement, whether it's with your kids in school, whether it's with, your local politics. If you're not involved, if you're not educated on what's going on, it's going to be challenging for you to keep up, especially if you don't vote, man. I mean, you have no voice, and as bad as that sounds, it's the truth.
Yeah, and I was telling John last week, that for a while I was always like negative. I would always say bad things about Calexico.
Right.
And I think there was a point when I was that person that said, you know what, screw it, I'm not gonna vote.
Right.
None of these candidates
are worth it.
And now I'm more of a I'm criticizing less and trying to, I guess with this, my podcast, I'm trying to put out information but at the same time, I feel like it's going back to, we don't use the technology in the right way.
Okay.
I feel that, we need to get more people, and I'm not trying to sell my podcast, right? I'm just saying because there's a lot more podcasts out there that that send out a lot of good information.
Right.
And yet we're not. A lot of our population is not using those tools that we have out there.
We're not podcast friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like I said, I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just saying, like, there's ways. Like for instance, Gil. You know Gil.
Yes. I've had a chance to actually be on his show. So, Gil, if you're listening, hey man, wishing you nothing but the best. I know you're a candidate for Brawley Elementary School Board, and I know you have your Meet the Candidate on September 20th, and I'm wishing you nothing but success, man. I know you're there too as a parent, and with the experience he has, I think he'll do a good job. I'm not endorsing him. We're different, but as the personal friendship that I've built with him. He's a great guy, man.
Yeah, and I relate a lot with him because we have that same mentality in sense of we can put out information through this meeting, this venue, but sometimes we do feel when we talk, we do feel like we're a little bit behind in that sense where we're doing this but nobody's like listening.
Right. And I mean, and it can feel like that. Like, for instance, I follow this one gentleman that does a lot of broadcasting, is Eric Thomas. I don't know if you heard of him. Mm-hmm. E.T. the hip hop preacher. Thank God it's Monday. No. And he's talked about how when he started, he would do a lot of the recording in his basement. And just him and the camera. And he would start putting the content out. And he felt like I wasn't talking to nobody, like he was talking to nobody. But then as the years went by, he's one of the top motivational speakers in the world right now. He's, people have come up to him like, you know what? I've been really depressed. I've been on the border of suicide, and you've helped me by listening to your message and your videos. So, I know you guys, it would feel like, it does feel like that. But if anything, I'm going to tell you guys is just keep on going. It's, politically speaking, we're kind of in the same place. And that's the reason why, even though sometimes, I'll go to the city council meetings or I'll watch them online and, you see very few to no people at the meetings. And it's kind of like, people tell me like, David, why are you even running? A lot of people don't even care. But I tell them, but who cares? Who? I do. And I think that's more than enough. And if I can spark that fire to a lot of more people, more to it. And if I don't, at least I know that on my part, I'm doing the right thing. And so if anything, you guys keep doing your thing, man. I think doing podcasts like this is awesome. Encourage people to listen to them more and try to keep it, like you said, positive. Because once you start, going into the whole criticizing and it doesn't, it goes from a podcast to like just
like a cheese man.
Yeah, like a chop, little chop shop and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I always said that my goal on my podcast is not to make it political. Right now, it's
campaign season.
It's a good topic because it's campaign season. People need to learn about the candidates. Right. And just, I'm going to put this out there. Anybody else that's running that wants to be on the podcast, let me know. And I'll have you as well. I did it, in the past in November and nobody hit me up. So, I mean, I can't, not that I feel, I'm kind of like putting, like saying like, I'm too important to reach out to you, but I have my own thing too. I have a family, I have a job. Yeah. This is kind of like my hobby. Right. So like that's why I say reach out to me because I have a million and one things going.
Yeah, because I know we were supposed to do a podcast similar to this a while back, and we've had things come up and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, persistency is the key, and how they say, how the saying goes, the fortune's in the follow up. And now we're here, and I encourage the rest of the candidates to come out and do this podcast as well. Not so much selling Jose's podcast, but if you can reach out to a couple of people and let them know who you are, I think the more the merrier. And one thing that I've told people that I'm focusing on this campaign is on being positive. I am not here to bash other candidates. If anything, I wish all of them nothing but success. Because even if I don't win and they do, there's still going to be a representation of Calexico, which is where I live. And if anything, I want them to do good. So, I encourage them to come out, so we can know a little bit more about them. Hopefully through this podcast, people kind of know a little bit more about myself and my intentions and of the love that I also have for Calexico. And it's funny because, when we're all in high school, and I'm sure you went through this, you're in high school and you're thinking, the first thing you're thinking, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to San Diego. Ya me voy de aquí and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you do leave, but at the end of the day, the majority of them end up coming back and they're like, what? Oh, because I love Calexico. It's a great place to raise your kids and, you get to know everybody. So, yeah, man, I encourage all the candidates to put yourself out there with whatever, coverage you can get so that, at the end of the day, come November 6th, people know who they're voting for and they feel confident that, placing their vote.
Yeah. And a lot of times when I've had, past candidates, people ask me like, ask him this about, they said this about this ordinance or whatever. And I'm not really, I really don't push, that kind of stuff because I want to, whenever I interview a candidate, I've never really have any like questions said because I want to have a conversation.
Right.
Because a lot of the times that way you get, you kind of like feel, the people's intentions. Right. So like whoever's listening can see like, you know what, this guy is.
This is not like a debate forum. This is more of I want to meet the candidate. I want to see where he comes from.
It's a conversation.
Right. Calexico Brewery, having a beer, chopping it up. And that's why I bring all these words out, like chopping it up and stuff, because I want to be real. I don't, obviously when it's time to be politically correct, yes. But at the end of the day, I want you to know me, David Romero, and that's actually pretty awesome. And I mean, of course, we know political questions will come up every once in a while, but at the end of the day, you really want to know the person for who he is and what he stands for. And, asking him a lot of questions about ordinances and laws, it's not really going to get you there. Ask him stuff about like, hey, ¿a quién le va? Triple G o Canelo? And like, oh, for starters.
For those of you who are just listening and not watching.
Like, well, who do you go for in the NFL? No, I go for the Raiders. Yeah, I'm not going to vote for that. So.
No, for those of you who are only listening and not watching, David has a Canelo t-shirt on. Today's the big fight.
Right.
Canelo Triple G #2.
And I think it's only like 2 of us in Calexico that are going for Canelo. But hey, we're there with our Mexican, even if he, tries to act like a little pretty boy. But it's all good. So.
So David, we're almost at an hour. Believe it or not. Usually that's how long my podcasts run. Anything else that you might want to add?
Well, actually, guys, now that we're actually doing this podcast here, Calexico Brewery, I'm going to host a Meet the Candidate on Wednesday, October 10th from 7 to 11 p.m. here at Calexico Brewery. Pinky's Hot Dogs is going to be there for their famous Weenie Wednesdays. So if you guys want to know a little bit more about me, grab a beer, grab a hot dog, talk it up, chop it up, talk, and know a little more for where I stand. I invite you guys out on October 10th, Wednesday, October 10th at 7 p.m. here at Calexico Brewery. Their beer is awesome. Their atmosphere is bomb. Like, Jose was saying, they're going to have pints and paints tonight from 6:30, have a good time. And, if anything, guys, Calexico, I love you guys. November 6th, I ask you to go out and vote. I would love to say go out and vote for me, right? But go out and vote for who do you think would be the best representation for you of your city and for the benefit of the entire city in a whole. I strongly believe that, the ideas that I bring, the passion, the energy, and the little knowledge that I have, I can, it would definitely help propel Calexico once again to the next level. A little bit of my platform is, I'm really looking forward to bringing more transparency in a business friendly city hall with more. I'm also looking to, setting up a team that, all it does is write grants, which I already have. Grants are crucial to our infrastructure. We always hear about parks, getting more parks, doing more this, doing more that. And the money's out there. We just got to go out there and try to get it. Yeah. And so that's something that I've already put together, which I'm willing to have, work whether I get elected or not. Because at the end of the day, I live here. Yeah. So, and the third thing is, the rebuilding of downtown Calexico. I think that's our staple right there. We went to the art walk yesterday for the 15 de septiembre at Grand Plaza. Shout out to Angel Esparza for, you know, putting all that, Angel Esparza and all that team for putting that event together. It was pretty awesome. Salud a la Bandera, the firework show was the bomb. And, you know, the Vicente Fernandez imitator, Luis Miguel and Juan Gabriel. It was a good time, man. I took out my family. I saw a lot of families out there, and, you know, being able to do those type of events, maybe in downtown as we start rebuilding it or more concerts. And, you know, creating it into a residential area as well, where, you know, people and, you know, where it'll bring more commerce there, where at the same time, maybe people don't have to cross over to Mexicali so much to have a good time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, where are you going? I'm going to downtown Calexico. I'm going to have a beer, or I'm going to go to Hope Cafe and have a coffee or have a crepe. And, you know, and maybe even through that, have more things to come. So, I appreciate you having me here, Jose. It was a good talk. And, you know, shout out to everybody who's listening to it. And if not, you know, hit up the recording. I'm excited, man. So if November 6th, you know, if you don't know who to vote for, David Romero for Calexico City Council, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, David. Thank you, Calexico Brewing Company, for allowing me once again to do the podcast here. And, yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Hey, don't forget to check out, the Ivy Nerds. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. Go Bulldogs.
Peace.